My name is Stephen Wright, and welcome to Sustainabilities. Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to the first ever episode of Sustainabilities, a podcast about some of the significant sustainability issues we're facing in the modern world and what we can do to help out. Now, I'm no expert. I'm a university student striving for a future in communications. I unfortunately cannot offer the best advice or solutions, but I think that fact speaks exactly to what this podcast is hoping to get across. Anyone, and in my own personal humble opinion, everyone can help out. All it takes is a little passion, a little knowledge, and some effort, but together, we can make this world a better place. Before any action can be made, however, it's important to know exactly what we're up against. I've scoured the internet for as much information as I can lay my eyes on, and what we have here in the first episode of Sustainabilities is a list of the top 10 most significant sustainability issues that the world is up against right now. As I said, solutions can be difficult to discuss because the answers are hard to find. So the point of this is mostly to raise awareness. In my research, I did find a few smaller efforts that can be made to address these 10 issues, and I'll share them where appropriate. But this is in no way representative of everything that can and should be done. We'll certainly look into these other efforts being made in greater detail in future episodes, but for now, Sustainabilities is proud to present the top 10 countdown of major sustainability issues. Number 10. One thing a bunch of people, I'm assuming here, and including myself, wouldn't really think about as a sustainability issue, but after doing a bunch of research, it turns out it really is a big one, and that's communication. At first I thought to myself, why is this considered such an issue? Talking to each other doesn't hurt anything, it's something natural that we do every day, and everyone does it. But my thinking was off. I originally thought this meant how we were communicating was the sustainability issue, but it's actually what we are communicating. When discussing issues, there seems to be a strong focus on the negative outcomes we're going to face, or what will happen if we don't do something. And while this helps raise awareness, lasting impacts come from positive reinforcement. Our collective focus should always remain positive in what we're aiming to achieve, how to achieve it, and while we still have to keep in mind the negative issue we're hoping to alleviate, there should be a strong sense of optimism. But communication issues aren't just on our shoulders. Companies and corporations play a large role in communication, and for them it's crucial to remain positive and especially transparent in communication of their operations. This means no greenwashing or false promotion of products and services. For listeners who are unfamiliar, greenwashing is the marketing of products as being green or otherwise environmentally friendly when, in reality, they're not. With a stronger consumer focus on environmental friendliness and sustainability, it's understandable why companies want to cash in on this added promotional value, but false communication or just downright lying is not how issues are resolved. Rather than greenwashing, companies should openly and honestly engage with their customers to bring about positive change for the community. And if done properly, it can also bring about positive change for them as a commercial entity. Open communication leads to larger profits, which leads to better communication, which leads to larger profits. You see where I'm going with this. It's sustainable. But it's this potential that makes sustainable communication our number 10 focus and our number 10 sustainability issue. Number 9. One thing pretty closely related to sustainable communication in a lot of ways, and our number 9 issue, is government. While the role of government in sustainability is pretty hard to define, and there are differing opinions on how much they should do, I think most would agree that government involvement in sustainability issues is at least a little bit important. Although bunches of things have been put in place to help, such as the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as various regulations such as the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and a few executive orders, industry leaders say that they want incentives from government, not regulations. I personally think at least some level of regulation is critical, especially in areas like waste, energy efficiency, and recycling, but incentives for companies would certainly provide a more positive and optimistic approach to making progress. But this is just from the commercial standpoint. Governments around the world, whether they are focusing directly on sustainability issues or not, need to focus on long-term consequences for anything put in place. Short-term responses to any issue are often very appealing, as they are easier to look at the big picture and oftentimes cheaper, but sustainability cannot happen without a long-term focus. Long-term health is one of the cornerstones of sustainability, after all. Whether the issue being looked at is considered one of sustainability or not, sustainability should be the mindset when governments are addressing anything. So the issue here is not government itself, but more so the mindset of governments around the world. Number 8. Although lots of companies are started every year, almost 500,000 a year in the last 5 years, obviously there's a staggering amount of companies already in existence. The number 8 sustainability issue on our list is the integration of sustainability and sustainable operations into existing firms and communities. In the past, and in recent years, sustainability has been treated mostly as an add-on to ways of thinking in daily operations already in place. Companies continue with what they've always been doing, but have a side thought of sustainable-minded operations. In order to make progress on essentially any sustainability issues faced by businesses and communities alike, it cannot just be an alternate way of thinking and acting. Sustainability needs to be on the forefront of business models and core operations. It's commonly thought that sustainability is an expensive way of acting from day to day, but true sustainability actually saves an amazing amount of money. Take Marks & Spencer, a sizable retailer based in the United Kingdom. Their recently implemented, sustainable-minded Plan A has saved the company $74.6 million since its implementation. Or look at a company built on sustainability, like Patagonia. They've always operated with the idea that their environmental decisions were never at odds with optimal financial performance. And it works. In 2013 alone, the company took in $600 million. But they take those profits and give them back. Every year, Patagonia will donate 1% of its profits to environmental groups, not to mention their extensive recycling programs or various environmental initiatives. The achievements of these sustainably integrated companies should not only demonstrate the great success that can be brought on by sustainability, but they should also influence other companies to follow suit. But so many companies are not truly devoting themselves to sustainability, making integration of sustainable operations number 8 on our list. Number 7. Something put at great risk from the growth and development caused by humans is biodiversity. And the biodiversity that is being shut down by us is actually responsible for a lot of incredibly important things, making it our number 7 sustainability issue. As humans expand in population and location, they threaten the natural land and biodiversity that occurs. And why is biodiversity so important? Well, the National Wildlife Federation does a fantastic job at breaking it down. Biodiversity helps in medical breakthroughs through the study of all of the species of plants and animals in existence. It helps produce a large variety of products, which in turn boosts our economies around the world. But most importantly, biodiversity makes life on Earth livable. However, due to our habits of spreading non-native species, overexploiting certain populations, in activities like overfishing, and general pollution greatly negatively affecting many areas of the planet, biodiversity is taking a huge hit. About 1/3 of all known species are at risk of extinction. This is a tough issue to address because growth is a natural behavior. But we should always be conscious of how fast we're growing and the effects of such growth, as well as the consequences of certain commercial practices, like overfishing as mentioned. Once a species is extinct, it's never coming back, which is one reason why biodiversity is number 7 on the list of sustainability issues. Number 6. One of the more obvious sustainability issues takes our number 6 spot, and that's water. Essentially everyone and everything on the planet Earth benefits from water, But quantity, quality, and access to water remain a severe issue. Many of our most important aquifers are being well overpumped, which causes widespread declines in groundwater levels. Half of the world's wetlands have been lost to development, closely relating to our previous issue of biodiversity, but also further tainting the Earth's water supply. The world's water is increasingly becoming degraded in quality, threatening the health of people and ecosystems and increasing the cost of treatment. This is not sustainable. While large efforts should be made by bigger corporations who make use of the Earth's water, there are certainly things to be done on a consumer level to help save one of, if not the most valuable resource on the planet. First off, save yourself some money and help save the planet at the same time. Stop buying water bottles. Bottled water typically costs 1,000 times more per liter than high-quality municipal tap water. And for what purpose? According to the Pacific Institute, tap water, especially that in the United States, has incredibly high quality, even given its low cost. Plus, the quality of bottled water is not held up to the standards that most believe it to be. Even where regulation does exist, which is not everywhere, bottled water plants receive less scrutiny from inspectors than other areas of food production or municipal water systems. In fact, the bottlers themselves do most of the sampling and testing, which easily leads to misreporting and inadequate consumer protection. Provision of clean water to the world will certainly not come from sales of bottled water, but from effective actions taken by governments, communities, and municipal providers around the world. Also to help this issue, just consume less. Take shorter showers. Turn the water off when you brush your teeth. You know, all of the water advice you've heard in the past? It really helps. Big time. So do it. Number 5. Just put plain and simple, number 5 is waste. If you've ever seen the Disney Pixar film WALL-E, you can guess the direction we're headed in if we continue our habits of overconsumption and waste. While it could be a bit over-dramatized to picture the Earth as completely unlivable, filled with buildings made of nothing but literal garbage, it isn't far off when you consider that the average human being produces 4.3 pounds of waste every day, a whole 1.6 pounds more than in the year 1960. That means that in the United States alone, every 365 days, the Earth takes on 220 million tons of waste. Let me just clarify, that's not 220 million pounds. That was 220 million tons just in the US. And we could go into some complex initiatives and efforts being made to reduce that, but here at Sustainabilities, we think it's better to focus on what we all can do in our own daily lives to help out. And it may seem obvious, but a huge help is to just recycle. It might seem like most people know this already, but there is still an unacceptable amount of homes and communities that do not separate their trash and recyclable items. That 220 million tons of yearly waste mentioned earlier, over 75% of that is actually recyclable. Recycling aluminum cans alone saves 95% of the energy used to produce new cans. Recycling one can saves the energy equivalent of listening to one full album on an iPod. Recycling 100 cans saves enough energy to light your bedroom for 2 whole weeks. Tons of overall waste is food waste. And if that was actually composted instead of thrown away, it would reduce the same amount of greenhouse gas as taking 2 million cars off the road. Which is the perfect segue into our number 4 sustainability issue. Number 4. Transportation. It's no secret that gasoline consumption and gas-fueled cars have been a major sustainability issue for years. In 2012, greenhouse gas emissions from transportation alone accounted for about 28% of total U.S. greenhouse gas emissions, making it the second largest contributor, behind our number 2 issue, but we'll get there soon. I'm sure we've all seen the other frightening details of the effects of greenhouse gas emissions and how personal transport plays into that, but luckily, just like the waste issue, there are tons of small lifestyle changes that people can make that have a huge impact. Using public transportation instead of your own personal vehicle contributes multiple sustainable benefits. It saves gas, cuts down on CO2 emissions, and saves money. If you don't want to take the bus, biking is a fantastic option that saves money and helps get you in shape at the same time. But if you don't want to change your habits that much, there are still things to do in your personal vehicle use that help out. Reducing vehicle idling and driving sensibly by avoiding rapid acceleration and braking and obeying speed limits greatly helps reduce carbon dioxide emissions and gas consumption. We're still very early in the stages of the shift to all-electric cars, but in the next few years, we hopefully won't ever have to worry about gasoline and fossil fuels anymore to power our transportation. Obviously, this comes with a massive need for an overhaul of energy provisions and infrastructure, supplied in part by our number 9 issue, government, but many manufacturers are planning on such an explosion of electric transportation in the next few years. Number 3. I wouldn't really expect this to be so high on the list, but in the end, I guess it kind of makes sense. The number 3 modern sustainability issue is buildings. Buildings are a major source of carbon dioxide emissions, so there's incredible potential for the design of more energy efficient buildings, as well as retrofitting existing buildings with the right technology to lower their emissions, such as solar panels to provide at least some of their energy. And what's awesome about the use of solar panels is that they save enough money in the long run to pay back the cost of purchasing them, then saving you even more money after that period is over. The amount of time to pay back a solar installation varies depending on your grids and amounts of sunlight, but a solar installation in a state like California is generally paid back within 9 years. Plus, going solar is essentially a risk-free investment. As grid electricity rates continue to rise, and they will, the payback period becomes shorter and shorter, and your return on investment becomes higher. No matter what happens to any electricity company, as far as I can tell, the sun will always remain free. Plus, after you reach your payback period, you can enjoy years of free electricity, with solar lifespans lasting 40 years or longer. But outside of solar installations, it would be beneficial for everyone to install energy management systems, perhaps with some automatic meter reading on buildings, to help aid in improving energy use. But, as with a few of the other issues listed, more government help and regulation is probably necessary to see real progress on our number 3 issue, buildings. Number 2. This is a big one. Our number 2 sustainability issue is energy. On a global scale, we are forecast to be, quote, 1 Saudi Arabia short, unquote, of our energy needs. And this deficiency is widely believed to support the prediction that energy prices will continue to rise in the foreseeable future. Based on that alone, we're far from sustainable. Energy security remains a critical issue, and the gap between the world's future energy needs and the existing supply is incredibly large. But this means that there's some pretty high potential for the implementation of alternative energy sources. The UK is currently doing a fantastic job in generating power from offshore wind, which shows that action is happening in the area of renewables. Large investment is needed to replace our current energy infrastructure, and combined with this is the need to move to a smart grid whereby electricity is more efficiently delivered from suppliers to consumers using two-way digital technology. But this is looking to larger groups and companies for some solutions. When it comes to what we can do as consumers to help out, it might be pretty obvious, but it truly makes a big impact. Just consume less energy. Turn your lights off when not in use. Don't leave household appliances plugged in all the time. Try not to fall asleep with the TV on. Not only does this save you money, but it requires less energy to be provided by your grid, or if you're more advanced, your solar installation. We certainly have a long way to go, but the energy crisis is one to be optimistic about looking into the future. But nonetheless, it's still a significant issue, making it number 2 on our list. Number 1. Since we haven't heard it yet, some of you might know exactly what I'm about to say. The number 1 most significant sustainability issue right now is climate change. It scares me just a bit to think that climate change is still an issue that some believe is speculation, or that there is no real evidence of climate change. Looking to NASA for data, That's right, NASA, which I'd like to think is a pretty well-respected, or at least should be well-respected, source of information. There is tons of compelling evidence of rapid climate change. The sea level has risen about 6.7 inches in the last century, caused by the shrinking of ice sheets and decreased snow cover in the northern hemisphere. The temperature of the oceans has risen approximately 0.302 degrees Fahrenheit since 1969, which doesn't sound like much, but 56 years is not a very long time for that big of water bodies. Glaciers are retreating almost everywhere throughout the world, including the Alps, the Himalayas, the Andes, and the Rockies. The number of record high temperature events in the United States has been constantly increasing since 1950, with increasing numbers of intense rainfall events too. And the pretty obvious result when it comes to climate change? The global temperature continues to rise, especially since the 1970s, with 10 of the warmest years occurring in the past 12 years. Everyone from businesses to public spaces to our own homes have an impact. So what can we do to help out? The number one cause of climate change is greenhouse gas emissions, which we've discussed in a few other issues. But other small efforts to make at home include swapping out light bulbs with Energy Star marked lights, using air conditioning and heating smartly, sealing and insulating your home, the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, use water more efficiently, but also spreading the word. The point of this episode was to raise awareness of some significant sustainability issues we're all up against, and hopefully the raising of awareness continues as soon as the episode is over. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to them about implementing these techniques in their homes. Talk to your employers about being more green. Climate change is something that really cannot be undone. So now it's up to us to prevent further damage from occurring. Although awareness is the first step, there's still a ton to discuss along the lines of sustainability. So stay tuned with us. We've got some great discussion topics upcoming. But that said, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today on Sustainabilities. Although the topics addressed can be upsetting, disappointing, or just downright scary, we are, after all, working together for a better and brighter future. In the end, we have one world to live in. Let's keep it healthy, strong, and most importantly, sustainable for many generations to come. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.